Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad to have you. We're going to give a few moments for the room to fill up. There are many of you here, and we're so excited to offer this Ask Me Anything on the WIF Fellowship program. So thank you again for your time. Also to let folks know, we are recording this session. So if you missed anything or have friends that wanted to join but couldn't, please let them know that they'll be able to watch it later on the WIF website. But we, again, are so happy to have you and answer as many questions as possible within our hour-long time together. Wow, and folks still coming in, so I'm just going to give it a few more minutes. Thank you all who were here right on time and early. We love to see it. It's the way to be, even in LA. Okay, so let's get started with some introductions. Happy to be here with this crew, the stalwart crew that's been helping to shepherd this program for into its third year, which is very exciting. My name is Maikiko James. I'm the Senior Director of Programs at WIF. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And this program, the fellowship program, really is what I like to call our greatest hits program. From my time starting at WIF back in 2014, we really pulled together what we thought were the most important elements of the many programs we've offered over the years and put them under the umbrella of the fellowship. And that's how it came to be last year on our 50th anniversary. And I deeply feel, especially in this moment in the industry, whereas we don't have much control over the budgets getting created and money getting spent on projects, what we do have control over is our community and our network and our relationship building. And the fellowship program is really meant to offer that opportunity. We are, as you I'm sure know, if you're on this call, a cross-disciplinary program, meaning if you have a job in entertainment in Los Angeles, we think you should apply for the fellowship. It could be in any field. Yes, we have distinct buckets and categories on our website, but you'll notice in the Artisan and Crew Fellowship, really that is the catch-all. If you're like, I didn't see my particular field listed, doesn't matter, please apply anyways. We will do our best to find you mentors and guidance in your field, whatever it is, if we think we can. And really that's another very important component of this program to us. We've had a long focus on creators like writers, directors, producers, and we still love all of those positions. That said, we really are excited to expand our support for people in technician and artisan fields, everyone working in physical production and everyone working in the business side in particular as well, executives and people who are really climbing the ladder to make those important decisions in Hollywood that are determining what kinds of stories we're getting to see on screen. So again, for any position you have, you're not sure you see it, it doesn't matter. We say apply anyways. And again, this is a time to ask if you have a very specific position if you would be eligible for the program. More broadly about WIF, I really want to emphasize the need and importance of community right now. You'll notice I am saying WIF and not women in film. We are acknowledging of a time in our society where everyone, truly everyone needs support, collective, and community right now. WIF has long served women in film, but we've also long served women in television, women in the digital industry, women in commercials, and also we don't serve strictly cis women. So as you hear me refer to WIF, it means that we are expanding, broadening, and really attempting to meet the moment and our society where we are. So again, if you have questions, if you are eligible based on your identity, please ask us those questions as well. We also have many types of people within the WIF community. And so we are really open to feedback and instruction on how we continue to expand and be embracing of everyone, truly everyone who works in Hollywood in sustainable and safe ways. So thank you all for understanding why we're referring to WIF. As you go out into the world, we thank you for referring to us as WIF, even though we know it's a little bit of a mouthful. And so with that, I will turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Melissa. Oh, but first I want to acknowledge our incredible program coordinator, Amelie Shugi, who is monitoring the questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So if you have questions that you want answered throughout the AMA, please put them into the Q&A box by clicking at the bottom. I believe the chat is disabled, so we won't be using the chat. And we will also be posting links on our end into the chat that as we refer to them throughout today's conversation. But let me hand it over to Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So happy so many of you are here. I am Melissa Verdugo. I'm the Senior Manager of Career Programs. I use she, her pronouns. I have had the pleasure of working alongside Kiko on many of the programs that she mentioned that have become the fellowship since I started in 2017, and have particularly been handling the day-to-day of the fellowship since we launched it for our 50th anniversary. So very excited to tell you all about it, excited to see all of your applications. And thought I could start today just by kind of going over some very basic parameters of the fellowship and, let everybody know when applications close, all of that, and then we can launch into those questions. So we will say right now the applications are open both for our fellowship and our Episodic Lab. The applications for the Episodic Lab will close on Monday, November 4th. It's a much shorter window. So if you are interested in the Writer Fellowship or the Episodic Lab, please make sure you're noting that those application closures will come much faster than the fellowship because the fellowship actually doesn't close until January 13th, Monday, January 13th. So you have a little bit of time and plenty of time to ask questions of us. You can send questions to the programs email, which Amelie, if you could drop that programs@wif.org email address for people in the chat, that'd be great. And then for those who are accepted into the program, just note that the Episodic Lab starts on March 4th. The schedule for that is still evolving and more information will be given as the application or the judging process moves forward towards the end of the year and the beginning of next. And then the fellowship orientation for those who are accepted into the program isn't until May 14th, with the program really kicking in probably at the beginning of June. That orientation date may evolve a little bit. Just know if you apply, as soon as dates change, we will let everyone know so that you can still protect that date just in the event that you are accepted into the program. So the fellowship, I think, can best be explained by the buckets of support that we give. We will say, I'm sure this is a question that will come up. How many, people do we accept? It has evolved every year. The first year we accepted around 87. This year we accepted 60. It really will depend on sort of the pool. And as we're getting closer to notifications and acceptances, the mentor and advisor pool that we have around us as well. So that will evolve as we go. But the fellowship is really comprised of about 4 different buckets of support. So that is mentoring. So all of the cohorts, which would be, producers with producers, directors with directors, the various artisan crew disciplines with disciplines that are of their same, track and trajectory. There is mentoring that we use the circle method for. So that means if you are a cohort of 1 or you're a cohort of 6, you would meet in your group with a mentor who is advanced in your field. So that might be a mentor who does exactly what you do. Oftentimes, especially for writers, directors, we also bring in business side mentors. Sometimes they mentor together. Sometimes the circles meet with business and craft separately, but it is an opportunity to have a consistent mentor for the group, the discipline group, so that a relationship can be built. You can build a relationship with the cohort around you. And it really is a marker throughout the year of the fellowship to have consistent mentoring meetings where you can ask questions, session to session, hopefully have themes about the sessions and really sort of get a good understanding of what could be helpful to you as you move forward in your career, especially in this year of oddness and continued oddness, I think, for the last couple of years. We also offer opportunities for mixers. We program some at WIF that are very strategic, where we bring our fellowship community together. We are always getting invitations for our fellows for events that partners put on, things like that. So mixers and bringing the community together is really important. Another bucket is education. We find education extremely important. We particularly want to make sure that everyone coming into this fellowship program, can leave with a real great base understanding of how the industry is currently working, biz of the biz, state of the industry. In 2020 with our financing intensive, that looked like really understanding the state of independent film financing. That is something we've carried on. It could also be things like, making sure that everybody understands actual production to post, making sure that if you are somebody who really works in production, you understand the needs of post. If you work in post, you understand, the production line coming at you. So making sure that there's education, and also education that the mentors can support us in giving individual cohorts as well. So, what do producers need? What do directors need to know in this moment? What do camera people need to know in this moment? And costume designers need to know, things like that. So education is a very core aspect of this fellowship. And then the last bucket would be career strategy. So that has looked really different every year. It really has to do with the needs of the fellowship for that year, and also the advisor and mentor community that we have around us. But typically we find out from our fellows what is really needed in this moment, and just try and make sure that we are looking for opportunities for our fellows that can really help with those individual needs. So if a fellow is somebody who really wants to expand their community in this moment, we're looking for opportunities where they can attend mixers and meet people in guilds and unions. And, if they're business, they can meet people from other companies, just to make sure that we are expanding that community. But if somebody is, really trying to meet with somebody or pitch a project to somebody, we do our best to, see if we can be helpful in that and supportive in that. So it really is, based on the needs of the pool that we have that year. So that is basically the structure of the fellowship, and it is a year-long program. So it onboards around May of each year. We kick it off start of summer each year, and it really does go for the entire year. And we are always excited as a program team and a WIF community at large that, we love talking to our fellows. We love getting to know you through the year. I think one of the reasons that we did go to this fellowship version as opposed to our standalone programs is so that we could have a year to get to know every single fellow that participates in our programs, and can build real relationships that can carry on beyond the year in the program. We really value and find a lot of pride in our fellowship community, the alumni that has come out of it, and are happy to say that we're still really close with so many who are in our 2023 fellowship. And we are loving getting to know the fellows in our 2024 fellowship. So with that, I think that is the basics, and I think we can move on to some Q&A.
Great. Thank you all for popping in so many questions to the Q&A box. We love the questions, and I think really important for us to know what we're not sharing clearly on our website. So that's very helpful. This is a Los Angeles-based program. I will say that first and foremost. It seems many people are coming from other places outside of Los Angeles. The program is year-long, and there are many in-person events in LA. So if you are someone who has the capacity to be in LA for a year or to travel back and forth from wherever you are, that is a consideration that you might want to make. That said, if you are completely remote and not based in Los Angeles, it would be harder for you to participate in this program. One consideration that you all who are outside of Los Angeles might consider is we have chapters all over the country. We are WIF Los Angeles, but there is an overarching umbrella entity called WIFTI, Women in Film and Television International, where you can find our many chapters listed throughout the country and the world. And we would love to be partnering with those sister chapters to help them put on the fellowship as well. And many of them might be smaller in size and don't have our resources and staffing, but we have the know-how and this model to share with them, and would love to start the fellowship opportunities in other places. So I deeply encourage all of you who are not in LA to reach out to your local Women in Film chapter via the WIFT website, and see if they might think about bringing a fellowship opportunity to them if you are not LA based or don't have the capacity to travel to Los Angeles. Another brass tacks question was, do you have to be a WIF member to apply? No, you do not. The applications are a la carte, meaning you can pay a $40 fee and you can apply for any particular line or trajectory in the fellowship that you like. If you want to apply for multiple tracks in the fellowship, such as producer and writer or executive and editor, It will be $40 per application. We also recommend that you pick the one that you're most excited to build your career towards, not the one you're trying to move out of, if that is what's happening. So if you're looking to transition into a particular trajectory, apply for that fellowship with clear articulation of why you're making that move in your statement of interest. That said, if you are a genuine multi-hyphenate, which many of us are these days, that's okay. And so if you're like a writer director and you don't want to choose between the two, know that the fellowship you are applying for is going to be specifically focused on writing or directing, but you're welcome to apply if you identify as both.
I think there's two questions here that maybe can answer some other questions for the group. There's a question about whether or not the fellowship includes production accountants. And we will say production or accounting is something that we mentioned when we built the business fellowship. We would love to see production accountants and people who are on the finance side of film. I think that is only helpful. What is wonderful about having sort of the outlier positions is it's a really great way for those outlier positions to meet all different types of people in the industry that could potentially hire them or work with them. And I will say the casting directors, the intimacy coordinators, if we had a production accountant who are only sort of like one or two in the fellowship so far, they're also very popular with their fellowship pool because it's really exciting to meet a production accountant. Everybody needs a production accountant. So the answer to that is yes. And that answer can go for any question. If you are saying, is my trajectory in the entertainment industry a part of this fellowship? The answer is yes, even if it's not yet. We may still have to build it. But if you are a candidate that we feel really makes sense for the fellowship, even if we've never supported your specific track, we would build out the fellowship around your track. And that is the beauty of the Artisan and Crew Fellowship. It is really meant to, and also the Business Fellowship, meant to wrap our arms around people that we maybe haven't found support for in the past or been able to really meet through WIF. So that is one. And then the other question was, are there specific qualifications for the business fellowship? And I think that answer is the same for all the fellowships, which is what is on our website as far as the requirements, which are actually very simple as far as living in Los Angeles and having a very clearly articulated path in the entertainment industry, are pretty, vague. Each individual application for each individual cohort has very specific requirements for that cohort. So if you're applying to the business fellowship and you say, okay, great, I'm looking at the basic requirements for the fellowship in general and I match it, and now I'm looking at the business fellowship application and I can turn in, there's nothing that I don't have here, then you qualify. And that's really how we gauge whether or not somebody is ready for the program or not in their specific cohort, and how we often encourage, if you ask the helpline, whether or not you do qualify, we usually do sort of point you back to that application and say, if you are looking at the application and you don't have what we're asking for, then chances are you are not quite at the stage for that portion of the fellowship. Maybe there's a different trajectory that you would want to look at. But if you can submit everything, then you qualify. And that's sort of the clear answer, business or anyone else.
And to clarify what is on the application, you can see PDFs on our website. So you can well, what are you asking for? Go ahead and go to our website and download those PDFs, and all the questions and requirements are listed on those documents. Also, to speak to Melissa's response, the experience is wide ranging, and depending on the cohort, some are more competitive than others. So as you can imagine, the writer-director fellowships are quite competitive. There are many aspiring and current writers and directors in Hollywood, and those tend to be our largest application pools. And so while for the directors, we are looking for at least having done, short film projects, commercials, music videos, and then also if you've directed episodic television and a feature or more, great, you should apply as well. So we really take a range, but if you have not ever, say, directed a short film, I would say you were probably out of the running for the director fellowship. And if you have many on your resume, it might put you higher. That said, the number of things you've directed isn't necessarily what puts you ahead of the pack, so much as the quality of what you've directed and the clarity on where you think your path is going. With the writers, I have seen some questions around the distinction between the Episodic Lab and the fellowship. For the episodic lab that we do in conjunction with the blacklist, there is an actual junior eligibility requirement in that you cannot have made more than $25,000 in writing for television professionally in your career. So it's not for someone who's already staffed in a TV room. If you've never staffed before, but you've been, say, an assistant or a coordinator, or you have no experience writing in television, you should absolutely apply with your half-hour or hour-long pilot. And if you've done other, elements in your career that weren't writing, that's great. We love that too, but there aren't any professional requirements in the episodic lab except for that you have to have that maximum of $25,000 that you've made in writing professionally. For the Writers Fellowship, which is actually separate from the episodic lab, we don't have any of those parameters. Really, any writer can apply for the writing fellowship with either episodic or feature writing samples, or both. We love both if you're doing multiple things, as again, we all need to be doing at this time. So for the episodic lab, if you get into that, you will get the month-long program that we run in conjunction with the blacklist. For the Writers Fellowship, if you don't get into the lab or you're not applying for the lab, you will get the years-long program that is similar to the one that Melissa has been describing with the mentorship, networking, and career strategy. That said, one kind of confusing point, but must be illuminated, the episodic lab fellows also become WIF fellows. So if you're accepted into the episodic lab, you'll get that month-long program and then be a WIF fellow as well. If you are not in the episodic lab but become a writer's fellow, you get the strict 1-year program that is the writing fellowship. So just if you want to think of it, there are 2 different circles of writers, one getting the month-long program and one getting just the year-long program.
We see a question here about age limits. Yes, I believe we would need all participants to be 18 years old to apply. There's a question about, is there an age limit on the other side? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Talent does not expire. We welcome all ages as long as you are of age to be in the program for sure. There were also a couple of questions of, if you don't have a job right now in the industry, does that disqualify you? Absolutely not. There are many of times that those of us in this industry do not have jobs at that current moment. Many of us are freelancers. We also know we just went through a double strike where even the business, executives in this business were also affected. So absolutely not. We look at the totality of what you've done. And yeah, if you are in the middle of projects or jobs right now, hopefully that's something that building into this community could actually help you with in the future. Also, a couple of questions about if you applied and didn't get in, or if you were a fellow. Hi, Michelle. If you were a fellow before, it is probably not likely that you would get accepted into the same fellowship a second time, especially with this only being the 3rd year of the program. But if you are a multi-hyphenate and you were in a cohort at one point and you want to try for the other cohort, you were in the Director's Fellowship and now you want to be in the Writer's Fellowship or Producer's Fellowship. If you were a producer and want to be in the Business Fellowship, there are a lot of multi-hyphenates in that sense. We welcome you to apply again. Also, if you know us, please reach out to us directly. We can have more in-depth conversations about it, but certainly would encourage anyone to apply for new cohorts. And then I think the last one was if you, and Mikiko, you can also jump in on this one, but if you submitted a script before and you didn't get in, what do you need to do to address, any concerns there? I would say the same for this, or if you applied in general without a script and, without a script being necessary. It really is just about assessing, do you feel that you, there are notes that you could take on that? Have you had someone read the script and give you notes that you could possibly address? Looking at your statement letters, I'm sure there's going to be questions about that. Artist statement or letter of intent is what some programs call it. It's really about looking and seeing, did I communicate everything I needed to in this? Is there anything that I left out that might be helpful to the programs team to know more about me so that they can see how I fit? Because what we will also say about the selection process, and this is I think a hard thing to unravel for people who are applying. Sometimes it comes down to the cohort that we form. So if we can only accept 6 producers, but we have 15 producers who are absolutely amazing, it really might come down to what is the best fit of 6 people? How can they complement each other, learn from each other? The mentors that we have available, how do they match? So the more information you can give us in that statement letter, not going over 3 pages and not filling it unnecessarily, being very, articulate and clear clear with what you need and who you are is really helpful to us in the the end result and those final decision-making processes. So I will also say, if you have questions on your application and just want to see if you can get a couple of notes, we're happy if you reach out to that programs@wif.org email to look back at the juror notes and give you any feedback that we can sort of call to sort of explain maybe where you landed in the submission process last time and any thoughts that we had that you can improve. Maikiko, do you have anything else, or do you maybe want to speak to statement letter while we're on the topic?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So folks are asking what makes an application stand out. Love this question. It's tricky, right? We get, upwards of hundreds, if not thousands of applications every year. And for me, what I'm looking for when I'm reading a statement is clarity, right? Do you know who you are, what you want to do, and why you're trying to do it? And obviously that will look very different from, say, a writer to someone working in post or in sound. So we don't expect those statements to be the same. I just want to see that you're passionate and clear on where you're trying to go in that career trajectory. One note that I gave a director recently who wasn't accepted into the program that I think was helpful to them was, what is your voice? And I think anyone in any position can be clear on what their voice is, regardless if it's a creative position or a technical position. But what are you contributing to, our vast portfolio of content that is unique to you? And so, I'd get really specific if you can. Obviously, we are WIF, so we often hear like, I like female-driven narratives with like strong women characters. I'm like, great. We hope so. We hope 100% of the people applying to this program like strong female-driven content. So what else, right? What else is unique to you and the worlds you build or the worlds you're interested in creating as a cinematographer, as someone, a composer, right? What are your unique visions and imaginings around the stories that you help to bring to life? We also really appreciate your experiences, right? If you're someone who came from a different career path prior to entertainment, we love to hear about that. If you're someone who really is exploring and has tried lots of things, but has really a good handle on one specific skill set, we really want you to emphasize that. I will say again, for people who are fresh out of school or maybe even currently a student, that doesn't exclude you from this program, but we do want to see that you really were, as a student, making a lot of stuff, right? And that you've been working and you understand the professional environment of the industry. I will be honest and say you're probably at a little bit of a disadvantage in that many other people who are applying have years and years of experience under their belt. But again, we're looking for all different kinds of determinations and factors as we're reading these applications. Folks have also heard my pet peeve of when you're writing a statement, especially in the creative fields for all of them. Ever since I was a child, I have wanted to X. Great. Also assuming that's true. If you are someone who's always wanted to be a development executive since you were 5, actually be very curious about their story behind that. But if you're someone who's always wanted to be a director, let's do it an A to C and tell us like what you were doing as a young person, and then also what you are doing now and what makes your voice specific. So again, you have 3 whole pages to fill. We don't really want your resume in there because you already are going to give us your professional resume, but really illuminate us with stories, who you are and who you think you are becoming in this particular career path.
So we have a couple of questions about the career focus area of the application. That is actually really for you to tell us how you talk about yourself. So I think the question is specifically for the Director Fellowship and TV versus film directing. So the cohort that you would be applying to is director. And then when you get to input your career focus, you can be as specific as you want to. If it is like, I'm an independent feature director, that's okay. If it's I am an independent feature director and an aspiring TV director, we would love to know that. We would like to know how many TV director focused people we have in a application pool. If you are an executive or on the business side and you're a production accountant, you would put that. You can also say, I am this, looking to move into this. I am here with experience here and looking to build more into it. You can be as specific as possible, but it's really, we would put that question back to the applicant to say, well, who are you? And I think that's the easiest.
I'm seeing some questions around the distinction to apply for the Episodic Lab via WIF versus via the blacklist. You are welcome to apply through both if you like, or one or the other. There are separate application fees for both, obviously, but you will get read by two separate juries if you apply through both. So that is maybe the advantage of applying through both, but it's not a requirement to apply through both. I will also say, in terms of enlightening on the process, we review each application pool separately. The blacklist reviews theirs and WIF reviews ours. And then by the time we get to the finals round, we are reviewing them together. So just to illuminate how that kind of works. And we generally accept 6 writers into the episodic program. Occasionally there are more, especially if there are writing teams. I've seen some questions around writing teams. I will say if you are women, non-binary, or trans writers in a team, both are welcome to be in the program. If you have a cis male partner in your team, you're welcome to still apply. Your partner would probably be asked to not attend the sessions, but you would be, of course, welcome to impart any information that you're getting in the sessions with your partner. So that doesn't exclude you from eligibility. Also, if you have any questions about the blacklist application process, we encourage you to reach out to support@blcklst.com, and they can answer any of the questions on their website and how their process works, as it is different than ours.
I think we have a couple more questions about when you are a multi-hyphenate and trying to decide which track to apply for. First, I think it's important to really look at what type of genre you're working in. I believe there is a docuseries on here. For that, it probably does make most sense to apply for the producer fellowship, since producer in documentary and director in documentary often, is the same person on a project. So you can think of it that way. For the rest of you who are true multi-hyphenates and scripted, the truest answer is you are welcome to apply for all of the fellowships that fit you. Those who are accepted into the program, there is opportunity to sort of be invited into the space of the other specialties. There are oftentimes, if you're a writer, director, producer, there are plenty of times in the fellowship that we bring the writer, director, producers together for educational opportunities or mixers. There have been this is a very limited case-by-case basis, but there have been times that we have, offered mentoring circles in 2 different spaces to a fellow that it just makes sense for them. Casting directors, we often will put them with the producers as well, because it's an important aspect of their overall education of understanding their role and how they can advocate for themselves. But I think if you're wondering, the competitiveness is probably the true question that's being asked. I think we can be candid to say that our writer fellowship combined with our episodic lab is the most competitive pool that we have. We get the most applications for our writers. Good news is there's 2 different opportunities, right? There is the episodic lab, and then there's also the writer fellowship separate, even if you don't get into the episodic lab. So there's 2 opportunities there. There's more spots. Following the writers is probably directors. After that, I would say, Mikiko, do you think I'm right? Producers and cinematographers are sort of pretty matched. And also in producers is also physical producers. So line producers can apply for this as well. And we'll sort of separate you into different jury pools, because those are technically 2 different cohorts. So hopefully that sort of answers. We know that $40 an application is really tough in this moment. By no means would we ever encourage people to definitely apply for 3 separate fellowships. But hopefully that kind of guides you a little bit and gives a little bit of backup, that if you were accepted into one track, hopefully there's room for you to still be the multi-hyphenate that you are within the fellowship. It's really sort of the mentoring areas that are very, very siloed. Also on this topic, we have gotten a couple of questions. I know we went over the Los Angeles-based aspect of this, but we are getting questions of, if I currently live in another city, but I'm willing to relocate, can I still apply? If I'm international, but could be there, can I still apply? I personally, especially in this moment, don't think anybody should move for a program. So it is up to you. I think the requirement is truly if you can be in Los Angeles during the entirety of the 2025 to 2026, a year of the program, it is up to you. We would not disqualify you just because you are not currently in Los Angeles if you can guarantee that you can be here for an entire year. It's just a development program is not the right reason to move to a city like Los Angeles with how expensive it is and also sort of the state of the industry right now. So take that as you will. It doesn't disqualify you. It is, but it is, I think, a very big note from our hearts to yours in this moment.
And around that, so the fellowship is year long, but we do our best to program everything for working professionals. So the majority of program events are in the evening or on the weekends. There generally are not more than 2 events per month, unless you get into the Episodic Lab, which is again a different type of program in which that meets at least 2 times weekly throughout the month of March of 2025. But we really understand that if you have a job and you can't take time off, we will do our best to work around your schedule and make sure that we can accommodate needs. And our mentors are really wonderful about that as well, because they tend to be busy professionals. You tend to work, you know, in sessions at night virtually. So it's as most flexibility as we can offer so everyone can participate. We are also working on making sure that we can get stipends for people. We can't guarantee that at that moment, but we understand again in this time how important that is. And so when we are able to offer those, we will be announcing that as well. But at the moment, we do not offer stipends for the fellowship, but we really do our best to accommodate everyone's schedule so it doesn't impede with their work schedule or their caregiving schedule or whatever else that you are contending with right now.
And hopefully this will answer a couple of questions, but we have some questions about what is to experience, particularly for producers, I think is a question. Because the nature of the industry means that people ebb and flow, careers ebb and flow. It could take a couple of years for a next project to happen. We really don't have a limit on how experienced somebody could be. What we will say is if you feel that you are in that bucket of, I feel that I might be slightly too advanced for this, or I might be definitely too advanced for this program, please definitely reach out to us at that point, because it may be that the basic of the program is a little junior, or maybe it's information that you know, but there are aspects of the program that we can lean into a little bit more for you and maybe, bolster out, but we would love to have those conversations. So, we do have advanced business fellows, advanced executives in this program. We've had very advanced directors, or possibly people who are very advanced in one specific lane, but are, really trying to build into other areas. Really experienced in feature, trying to build into TV, really experienced in theater. We've seen a lot trying to build deeper into film and television. So I would say if you feel that you might be too advanced but are still really interested, that is when we welcome you to have a direct conversation with us and we can chat about it. I feel like there was another question that I could answer. Oh, a lot of questions about who the mentors are. Can we disclose mentor names? They're in all our press releases from the last 2 years. So the mentors change every year, or the pool changes every year technically, but many mentors choose to stay on. So they are 2023 mentors and now 2024 mentors. Some of them may be the same for 2025s. Many may be different. We always get new people in, and sometimes people have to take breaks. So if you go and look at any of our press releases from the 2023 or the 2024 fellowship, you can see all of the mentors that were confirmed for those 2 years, and it will give you an idea of the wonderful mentor and advisor community that we have.
I'm also seeing some questions on the jurors, which is a great question. For each of the circles or disciplines, it looks a little different because we have professionals in that particular discipline reading the applications. That said, as WIF, we really strive for a well-representative pool of jurors, meaning, as many women of color. We have some men, people who have desk experience, people who are in that particular profession, but also who hire that profession. So it's a range, it's a diverse, very vast pool of jurors, I will say, dozens and dozens, as you can imagine, trying to process all of these applications. But we really do our best to bring all kinds of people to our jury pool because we recognize, taste is different. The other aspect of it is we have multiple jurors' eyes on each application. So you're not being selected by one singular person. In the preliminary round, you're being vetted by at least 2 people plus the WIF team. And then in later rounds, it's even more. So, we're not exclusive to one person's taste in applicants. It really is a range of people who are reviewing. This is a really specific question, but I think points to sort of the
the world we were trying to create. We have a question of whether or not it's okay to submit a budget where the budget is zero for the project because everybody is working for $0. We would love people to not work for $0. We would love for people to be paid. So my suggestion to you, if you are truly very independent, you've done shorts, you've really, either paid for them yourself or had a very small budget, maybe rework that budget so that you are, they are deferred fees. So you actually have the budget built, but then you're putting $0 so that we at least know that you know how to build a budget. When you have money, you will, you know how to pay people. That's, I think, really what it's about. It is, if you have a budget, do you know how to manage it? Do you know how to build it? Do you know how to compensate people effectively? Are you a leader, who make sure of that? So that would be my suggestion for any of you producers, particularly independent who are, working with very limited funds. Just build the budget as if you had the actual money, and then you can zero out the lines. And also the for any of these sort of odd notes that you want to make sure we know, or you want to couch something in your application, that is where the statement letter really does come in handy. We really encourage you, if you want to show us a deck to something, hyperlink it in the PDF that you're uploading to us. If you have like information about, your career trajectory, or if there's gaps in your resume that you want to explain, put it in the statement letter. So the statement letter is to really tell us about yourself, including supporting the documentation that you've given us.
Did see a question on whether talent representation can apply. Yes, if you are an agent or manager or aspiring agent or manager, yes, please apply under the business fellowship. We're really excited to have more representatives in our fellowship pool. If I also saw a question about if you are VP level and above, we certainly have VP level fellows and above in the fellowship. It's not necessarily the expectation, but we know we need support at all levels. So if you think the fellowship is, a place where you can gain more support, by all means apply. In different years, both in our fellowship program and our mentorship program, we've seen the circles look a little different because of the level of people applying. We've even made specific circles for people at the level that they're applying. And we really understand mentorship does not stop at the beginning of your career. We need it at literally every stage. And again, to Melissa's earlier point, if you think maybe the offerings are too junior and it's a waste of your time, then don't apply. But if you know that you're someone who's like, I've been in this career for maybe 15 years, but I could really still use a broader community and network of people, please apply.
And I think we have some questions about, I think some general questions that are around the difficulty of getting accepted, the competitiveness. Do people typically apply multiple years before getting accepted? Not necessarily. We have had plenty of people apply for the first time and get accepted. We have had people who have maybe been in one program. I see that we have some people from our peer mentoring circles from the former mentoring program who are asking if there's, differences of what you need. Depending on some of the disciplines, the fellowship might be a little bit more advanced. So for writers, directors, producers, cinematographers, might be a little bit more advanced because it is such a competitive circle. On the flip side, I think Mike Kiko mentioned this before, we do have sort of the other side of the spectrum, particularly for artisan and crew. We, have key grips. We've had, costume designers that are just starting out, or production designers who are currently, assistants or PAs that are, but in that department and have really great credit. So the more competitive the bucket, I think the more advanced the fellows tend to be. So just telling you the numbers, I think that for 2024, we had almost 900 applications. It was like 898. We should just call it 900. And I think we accepted 60 total. So that gives you that idea. The previous year when we accepted 87, I think we had about 1,300 applications. We also had additional programs. We had the financing intensive as its own program and the future residency as its own program. So that kind of explains why there were more applications that year. But if there is about the same applications, that is only 60 people getting into the program around that. And each circle, other than writers, because there are two of them, have anywhere from one person, because, intimacy coordinator, we had one wonderful applicant last year and we accepted them and we're so excited. So that's a cohort of one, going up to, I think 6 is our main, or writers have 12. So the largest group that we have is writers. There's 12 of them. And I would say those applications alone were probably in the 400, maybe 400 total applications. So hopefully that gives you an idea. And again, we'll when you're making those hard decisions of if I can only apply for one cohort, which one is it? hopefully that's additional information for you.
Oh, I love that there's an entertainment attorney asking if there's a fellowship for them. We have not yet had an attorney fellowship yet, so please apply is the answer to that. The answer is yes, we haven't had it yet, but again, we spoke to this at the top of the session. If you don't see your particular field listed, but you think there's a fellowship in here for you, please, please, please apply. We have a vast network through our community. We will find you mentors. If we think you're right for the program, it doesn't matter what you do. It matters that you are clear on what you are doing. And we will do our best. Again, intimacy coordinator, VFX supervisor, key grip, these were cohorts of one, but they were, integrated into the bigger community and also had the, privilege of having their singular mentor experience. That said, that's something to consider also. If you're an entertainment attorney or someone who works in sound or someone who works in VFX and you're like, oh, I wish other people would apply for this with me. My gosh, please encourage your friends to do so. We have no disqualifications on friends getting in together. I don't think you can apply as a group, but you can apply individually if you know each other. And we really do want to expand all of those buckets where we have fewer applicants. So please, if you know you work in a profession, especially where you find yourself as less represented, you're from a community that you don't really see in that field, but you have friends who are also identifying as less represented, encourage them to apply because we want to grow in all of the fields where we haven't seen as much action or support, especially for underrepresented numbers.
And a couple of direct questions. Should your film sample be a recent one? Or if it's, you have an older one that might be, from film school, something like that. I think the simplest answer, submit your strongest material. Again, especially writer, director, producers, it is competitive, cinematographers as well. Competitive, you want to put forth whatever project you feel is the strongest one that you have. It doesn't matter if it was in film school. It doesn't matter if it was last month. Whatever the strongest one that you have, that's fairly recent. I mean, don't submit a 10-year, old short. Whatever your strongest recent material, please do that one.
I will also say, Melissa, you are able to submit more than one project or link. I will say this is on the technical level in your application. If you're submitting more than one link to a project or a script, or you're submitting multiple scripts for the Writers Fellowship in particular, put your strongest at the top because it's not a guarantee that the juror in the preliminary round is going to review all of them. And they, if you have like 2 hours worth of footage, like I'm not going to guarantee that the juror is going to watch all 2 hours of footage. But if you have like 3 really strong shorts and like 2 that you're like, you're welcome to put all 5, but I would defer to you saying, I think these are my 3 strongest representative works. I'm going to put those at the top. To clarify what I just said about writing, if you're applying for the Episodic Lab, you can only apply with 1 pilot per application, meaning you submit 1 script that is 1 pilot. You can apply with up to 3 pilots, but you have to do 3 separate applications. And again, it's for 1 project per application. So 1 pilot episode of TV that you wrote or you and your partner wrote to the Episodic Lab. If you're applying to the Writers Fellowship, you will see that you have the option to submit additional scripts. And we're looking collectively at most of what you submit with. So if you have both a pilot and a feature or 2 features or 2 pilots that you're submitting to the Writers Fellowship, jurors will take time to read as much of both as they can. So I want to make that distinction. It is actually the strength of the pilot itself that counts for the most for the Episodic Lab. And for the Writers Fellowship, we're looking comprehensively at all the materials you submit.
Questions about if we accept documentary film or only fiction? Absolutely documentary, a very important aspect of our industry. We have had plenty of amazing documentarians in our programs. And I would also point the applicants back to the application for producers and directors. It says that if you are a documentarian, submit this. So again, as long as we have it in the application, it's a go. We also have questions about actors. First of all, if you are an actor, writer, actor, director, absolutely it does not hurt you. They're some of the biggest powerhouses in our industry are creators who are also performers. So absolutely not. What we will say is, even though in every other multi-hyphenateness, we have support for all the multi-hyphenateness that you are, Actor is the one place that it is really difficult for us to figure out the support for actors. It really is about getting better roles out there and making sure that there's access, but we don't have an actor portion of our fellowship. So that is the one caveat, that if you're a multi-hyphenate actor, chances are your acting side will not really be as supported in this program as if you were a multi-hyphenate in a different area.
Seeing some additional questions on the writing program. We are a film and television program. The Episodic Lab specifically is a pilot for TV. The Writer Fellowship is a feature script or TV pilot. We do not accept stage plays. Someone asked if we take scripts for animation. Absolutely. And if it's an animated pilot or feature, great. Also, if you are a documentary filmmaker, we do encourage you to apply to the director or producer fellowships if that's how you identify in your documentary creation. We will say in the past, we've really weighed on how much support we can give documentary filmmakers. And previously, when we offered the financing intensive with Sundance, it was a huge focus for us, and we'd love to bring it back. So I'll say, please apply if you are a documentary filmmaker looking for this kind of support. It may be a smaller circle. We may not be able to accommodate it in a given year, but I come from a documentary background. I love to see documentarians in our world, in our orbit. So if you have the means and are curious and think, I really could use something like this, don't let that prevent you from applying.
A question about the difference between physical producer and other types of producers. Physical producer, typically line producers. We've often had production managers that are looking to move into line producing, which is the next step up. You can really think of physical production as producers who focus on production itself, budgets, payments, crew, schedules, timelines, things like that, as opposed to what we call creative or independent producers who really shepherd a project top to bottom. So an independent producer or creative producer might develop the project, find the funding, hire the line producer to execute the production, hire all of the crew and everyone, go through post with the project, really make sure that the edit is correct, and then work on the distribution. So that's kind of the difference. Are you a producer who is really developing your own projects and shepherding it top to bottom from conception through distribution? Or are you a producer who would be called a line producer and is really focused on, budgets and making sure the production itself is running cleanly? Most physical producers know they're physical producers, I will say. So I think that is also the distinction. Like if you feel that you are a producer in sort of the greater sense, you're probably more of an independent producer. Another really great question is how we handle disability accommodations. We have dealt with this in this fellowship, and it's really simple. We will talk to you at the top of the program to find out what you need, and then work with the fellow at each of these events. You were correct that each meeting mixer event is different. Luckily, for meetings and things like that, sessions, specifically the mentoring sessions, we have consistent partners and consistent mentors who are in that space who can partner with us on it and make sure that everything is accommodated. And then for mixers, we will, get ahead of it with the fellow and make sure that we're working with the venue to accommodate. But rest assured, we've experienced it and I think have a pretty smooth system.
A technical question on the Episodic Lab versus Writing Fellowship application B. This is a fun benefit. It's a twofer. So if you are applying for the Episodic Lab and would like to be considered for the Writing Fellowship as well, so you didn't get into the lab but want to be considered for the Writing Fellowship, there's a little box that you'll check that says, I would like to be considered for the Writing Fellowship. You may only want to apply for the Episodic Lab and not the Writing Fellowship, in which case do not check the box. And so, you don't have to pay twice to be considered for both.
We have a question about fellows with children and if there's anything offered. We don't have any sort of physical support for kids like childcare or anything like that. We like Mikiko said, we are constantly looking for sponsors that can come in for stipends, and we know that is something that's needed. We also are aware that on the flip side of people who are raising young people, there are also a lot of generations right now that are taking care of older generations, which is flip side of that sort of responsibility coin. I think Mikiko has been really great at bringing in some really wonderful community care sessions through through some partners and some colleagues that we have that really do focus on, just sustainability for working parents. Mikey, do you want to talk a little bit more about some of those?
Well, I think this really aligns with the accessibility question. If you have considerations that have prevented you, honestly, from sustainable work in Hollywood, as we know, caregiving often has, we'd like to hear about it. So an accessibility need might be, I have childcare obligations. I can't make sessions at this time, or I'm going to have a really hard time figuring out evening sessions. That should not prevent you from applying. We do need to hear about it, right? Especially if you get accepted and you're like, oh gosh, my caregiving obligations are really pulling me out during all of these particular times. We will work with you on that. Again, we are working hard on trying to figure out stipends and monetary support for things like this. But what we understand about our industry is that it really needs to transform in favor of being supportive of people who are giving care of all kinds, people who are caring for themselves in ways that the industry has been inhospitable to. So if you have any of those kinds of needs, again, don't let that prevent you from applying. We really want to know more about what you think would make Hollywood better and more accommodating to what you're going through. So if you have any questions about that, also please feel free to reach out to us at programs@wif.org.
We have a question for the Episodic Lab about writing partners. Mikey, the question is, if we have a writing partner for the Episodic Lab, can we both submit the same script? I believe the answer is that you submit as a partnership. You submit as a duo, so just one application.
Yes, if you write as a team, typically, for the Episodic Lab, you would submit as a team, and both of you, if you identify as women, non-binary, or trans writers, would be accepted into the program. If you have, again, a cis male writing partner, he would be asked not to come to the sessions, but you could share that information, but you would apply as a team. If you wrote a script one time with a partner and you want to apply with that script, it would be a negotiation with you and that writing partner for that particular project. If you don't typically write with that partner or that partnership is over, I wouldn't recommend submitting that particular project just because it's not where your trajectory is going.
We also have a question about if you are applying to the Episodic Lab with an episodic script, but you also want to submit your feature script for writer fellowship consideration. There is actually a box in the Episodic Lab application that asks if you're interested, if you are also a feature writer, which you can check. There's also a box that checks whether or not you are interested in the writer fellowship. So we make sure that only those who actually would want to go into the writers fellowship, if you do not are not accepted to the Episodic Lab, are considered. With that information, we can request the feature script in later portions of the application. But as far as the submission for the actual Episodic Lab goes, I believe it is just the episodic script. And then, we will know to ask you for more if you move forward.
We have a great question around the question on being a survivor or experiencing sexual harassment in the workplace on our application. Again, that is a completely optional question, so do not feel obligated to answer it if you don't feel comfortable. What we are using that information for is to understand how many people in our industry continue to be affected by this issue. Really, it's a numbers question, because what we've seen actually historically, unfortunately, in the last 3 years, is that even with Me Too, the vast majority of people applying to our programs have experienced some type of workplace violence or harassment or general discrimination, and that's something that we're looking to address. And we need to be able to say to our funders and our community supporters, this is still an active problem in our industry. We have not solved it, as you can see by the numbers of our applicants who've reported that, but in no way is that information disclosed or affiliated with you in your name. So if that's a concern, by no means feel obligated to fill that out. And it's just a yes or no question. But if you are also concerned that it's still an issue, it helps us to quantify how big of an issue this continues to be.
We have a question about how the mentors are vetted, particularly men. I will say right now, though WIF is really focused on activating men in our community, and we really need men, especially gate holders, to lean in and open doors and do the work that we're doing as well to move things forward. As of now, we only have one male identifying mentor, I believe, in our program. He's wonderful. He was a referral from another mentor. We interviewed him, spoke to him quite often. I think initially just put him with one mentor to kind of try to test it out. They had a great relationship, and now he's an official cohort mentor who works with the editors for the whole year. So particularly with men, I would say that we typically only take referrals at this moment. We want to make sure that we know somebody in the community who knows them. But also for our general advisor and mentor community, I would say probably 90% of our mentors advisors are either people known to the programs team or our board or our general staff who we've brought in, we've met, we know them, or they're referrals from our trusted mentor and advisor pool. So our pool has just grown sort of exponentially just based on our wonderful vetted mentors already bringing in colleagues that they have, and also our incredible board of directors at WIF constantly telling us, hey, I have a friend that wants to get involved. Like, can I connect them to you? And then Mike Kiko and I, Amelie, and our other WIF colleagues meet a lot of people at our events and are always happy to bring more people in. But all mentors are vetted through either who they know or interviews. And then we do onboard each of the mentors. So each of the mentors do get sort of a meeting that onboards them into the program to be really clear with the expectations. We have a whole mentor orientation booklet. There's a handbook that goes out to both the fellows and the mentors. So other than that, vetting on the top front, they're also trained to go into the program.
We are at the hour and we apologize for not getting to every single question, but I think we got through quite a few of them. Again, this has been recorded, so if you missed anything or thought you heard something but weren't quite sure, you will be able to watch this. If not, by the end of this week, early next week, it will be on our website. We also, again, encourage you to write to us at programs@wif.org if you didn't get your question answered in particular. And there's a lot of information on the website itself. You'll notice we skipped over some questions because the information is actually online. So we really encourage you to go back to the site and read through both the general information of the program and also the FAQs, which has a lot of additional information.
And I would go so far as to request, because the team that you're seeing is the programs team. Amelie is with our wonderful intern that we have this semester, Emily, really manning that programs account. So we're small but mighty. So we also request that you please go to the website before you come to ask, and try and only ask us questions that truly can't be answered on the website. But again, we know it's a lot of information, so it's also okay if you just happen to miss it. We're not going to be upset if you reach out to us with something that we can point back to.
With that, good luck. We're so excited to see all of your applications. Remember, if you can have the job in Hollywood, apply. We will find the mentors for you if you're accepted in the program. Our goal is to build this community in an ongoing way. Oh, that was one important question I didn't answer. The alumni community is just as important as the fellowship community. So that remains a really important part of the ongoing growth and development of the WIF world. So if you get into this program, yes, it's a year long, but then you're stuck with us forever. So just be prepared for that. We're so grateful to all of you for your attention and your great questions, and we will see you soon.